Good morning, beautiful people. How are you all doing today? I hope you're well. I am a bit chilly, hence the hoodie and the jumper, but I'm down here quite early for me anyway. It's about 9:45. The sun really hasn't had a chance to warm us up yet. Hopefully I'll shed some layers, and it's a real quickie jammed in visit today. So this morning I'm on my way home. I've already been out and about. I had my bloods done at 8:30 this morning. They asked me what time I wanted my appointment, and I said, look, let's make it really early. Let's get it done, dusted, no awkwardness in the middle of the day, because it is a bus ride, and it can, you don't know how the bus is going to be. Is it going to end up taking 2-3 hour chunk out of my day? So it's done quickly. And on the way home on the bus, I got off 2 stops early to come to the garden because, okay, you won't be seeing this until, I don't know, 2nd of May or so, but it's actually the 29th of April, and I'm here to get my potatoes in. Yay! Finally I'm getting my potatoes in. This week I have been like, I am not giving up to get these potato beds ready. They have been a nightmare, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit after they're planted. So I'm going to talk about my beds in general, but I'm going to talk about no dig gardening, Ruth Stout gardening, because that came up in comments recently, and Ruth Stout, brilliant woman. So I'm going to talk about no dig and Ruth Stout. I'm going to talk about why I don't do those, and there are specific reasons, but what I do instead and what I can do with what I've got, which over the years is helping, and why, despite the fact that that has been an absolute nightmare of a job in the potato beds, why I'm still really grateful to have the soil that I've got. So I've made some notes, because there are things I really don't want to forget things, because I think they're quite important points and they may be useful for other folk in a similar position to me. So we'll do that afterwards, and I think we might do it in the shed. I do want to do a couple of bits of demonstration of my soil though, so we may do a bit out there and then come back to the shed, but never mind that. Let's go and get these spuds planted before May. Good. So I've just started by laying them all out. I mean, I have a good idea of how many I can fit into each row because I've been doing it quite a few years now. But rather than grabbing one and planting it and then moving to the next and planting it, I put them all on the surface first, because then I can see where they are. Are they too close? Spread them out a bit. But also, if I plant one and then I go to do the next one, I can't see necessarily where I've planted the first one. So it just means that I can keep sort of, I can optimise my spacing. Right, let's get down here, let's get a bit closer and let me explain the mound, the trenches, depth, etc, etc. Right, up close and personal with the spuds. I'm doing my main crop here. The reason I paused for a second is I just wanted to make sure that I wanted my main crop here and my salad, my new potatoes there, and I do. And the reason I double checked is because the salad potatoes come out first. They will be out sort of end of August, just into September. The main crop, they're out by the end of October. And the reason I want to know about that is because of the follow-on crops. So the salad potatoes out sort of by the end of August, great. Then I can put my purple sprouting broccoli in, because I'm going to start the purple sprouting broccoli this week. It's it's a sort of a 10-month plant, if not more. And by the end of August, so they'll have come up, I'll have pricked them out into individual pots. They'll be really, really wanting to get into the soil by August. So they follow the salad potatoes. These, they come out, later, October, and they're followed by the garlic. So, I just wanted to double check. For my main crop, I'm doing Cara, I've done it over the years. I've tried different spuds, but I keep coming back to Cara because I love the taste of it, and you can use it in all the different ways you would use potatoes. I've never tried it as chips myself. I don't tend to eat them unless I'm at the seaside and then someone else cooks them. But apparently they make nice chips too. But the main thing for me is they store really well. So I realise I'm sort of rattling through all this, but we've kind of been here before, so I just want to cover everything quickly again. So Cara, love them, they store well. My new potatoes, my salad potatoes, we want a lovely waxy potato that holds its kind of form after cooking, you know, for our potato salads and such like in the summer, as opposed to something like the main crops, which will fluff up with cooking. So when we make our stews, when we make our fasolada, one of my favourites, they fluff up nicely in the cooking time. New potatoes don't, so that's what we want from our news and our salads. Love them all, Jersey Royals, I'm growing Charlotte, which is kind of my second favourite. My first favourite is Anya. I wasn't able to find organic Anya this year, and all my seeds, seed potatoes, whatever it is, they all start as organic in the first place, and then I garden organically within my garden because I don't want to buy produce which has been bred and developed for me on a farm that isn't organic, because then there's kind of like no point in me being organic. Right, okay, spacing. I'm not that fussy really, but they're about 40 centimetres apart. Sort of old school thinking would say that with main crop they need to be further apart. You know what, they go in. So in this row I've managed to, I've managed to get 7 in. It's partly because the rose is a bit in the way, never mind. With the new potatoes, slightly tighter spacing, more like 35 centimetres. And with them, I've managed to get 9 in each row. You know, they're smaller. They don't need quite as much space. But like I said, I don't get too fussy. I managed to get 2 rows in each of my perma beds, which are about, about 1 metre wide. Now, and this is what we'll come on to, we'll talk about later about digging, not digging, Ruth Stouting, etc., etc. I want loose-ish soil to put my spuds into. I don't want them going into really, really compact ground. I tried it once, and I'll explain this more when we talk about it later, but with the bulb planter, and all that happened was they just couldn't go into the, they just struggled. So they ended up coming up and out and ended up green and sort of useless. So I want a loose-ish soil to get them into. I also want them to get them into some depth of soil, so that as they start growing, there's room. If this is the level of the soil, I want to plant down here, because as those stems develop and all the spuds are coming off the stem, I want space below the ground for that to happen. If it happens too high up, like I said, they'll get exposed to the sun, they'll go green, and that's really, really not good for our tummies. So not only do I want to plant them with a bit of depth, I also then, as they grow and they get to soil level, I want to have more soil to drag over them to mound them up. We call it earthing up in the UK. I think it's what you call hilling in the States. I'm not sure. So that's why the bed needs a bit of a dig, quite a lot of a dig actually, in order to firstly to loosen this soil up, and then also what I've done then is with my rake, standing on the opposite side of the bed and reaching over with the rake and pulling it into the middle. So I'm over there, the rake head is like this, and I pull it up, scrape it up. It's easier than using a spade. So all of this soil in the mound is quite loose. So the idea is that as the potatoes are growing, it's loose enough to just scatter a bit over the spuds as they're growing, keep covering, keep covering, keep covering, so that by the summer, this mound will actually become a trench. It will be lower than the surface of the soil, because I'll have used it to put hills on my spuds. I was kind of mentioning that, or I'm mentioning it now, because in the past people have thought you make the mounds and put your potato in the mound. no, the potato goes in the trench at the side and the mound is used to cover it. So that at the moment I've got one mound down the middle. By the height of summer I'll have 2 mounds either side where my 2 rows are. So get on with it. I've given the soil a sprinkle of water this morning just to... my legs aren't comfy today. Just to give it, with my soil, it just helps, it softens it a bit and makes it a little bit easier to work with, because there are still some quite big lumps in this bed. But yeah, literally just a can of water down each row is enough. And then you can see I've got lovely sturdy chits have formed. The chits are going to go upwards. That's the plant starting. Yay! So they're facing upwards, and this is why also I was mentioning this way back at chitting time. That's why we want our chits to be nice, stumpy, sturdy ones like that, so that as we're burying them, the chits don't break off as those spindly white ones can. But having said that, you know, if you've got spindly white ones and that's all you've got, chuck them in. Don't want to be too... you know what, yeah. We don't want to be too precious about anything. Life's too short to be so precious. Right, so while I'm doing this, I'll quickly tell you about the bulb planter idea. Because it has come up, people have mentioned it a few times. But what you don't know is before I had my channel, I did use a bulb planter for my potatoes one year, because it was around about May. I think that was the year that I planted them on May the 15th. The previous November, I managed to break both my wrists. If you're going to break, don't break both your wrists at the same time. It's really inconvenient in life in general. I'm going to just bring you along here because we're going to go up the road a bit. I'm going to do a bum shuffle. Yeah, so, oh la la. So I broke them in the November, and obviously I was in plaster cast. Well, it's not plaster these days, it's fiberglass, isn't it? To start with, came out of that and went into splints, and there was a bit of a problem. The bones healed, but there was a bit of a problem with tendons, and I was in splints for months and months. Eventually my right hand was out of a splint, but my left was still in it. So by the time it came to planting the spuds, this hand was still in a splint. This one wasn't, but it was really weak. There was no way I could do any digging. And I suddenly thought, oh, use the bulb planter. And it's definitely my worst harvest of spuds ever. And I think it's for that reason that I was mentioning about, I think because my ground is so compact, I think part of it is as the bulb planter went in, it kind of almost solidified that cylinder. It was almost like putting a potato into a concrete tube. Just couldn't do anything. So all the spuds were, they were sort of coming to the top of the ground, finding a tiny bit of ground to grow in. And I would say, firstly, it was a much smaller harvest than previously, but also about half of them were light damaged, as in they were green. I can't remember the name of the acid now, it begins with S, it's sol something or other, and yeah, inedible. So yeah, it just didn't work for me. I know other folk have tried it and it's worked for them. This year it wouldn't have worked at all because I couldn't even get a bulb planter into the soil. I will demonstrate that in a sec too. But I realise I've gone out of shot. I've got all these spuds. Let me get all the spuds in, and then I'm going to show you why I haven't used the bulb planter this year, and we'll talk about No Dig and Ruth Stout. I've got to get up now. Good, they're all in. Right, just before we go into the shed, I've come to this little patch here under the... See, that's sort of where I then finished digging. So I just wanted to demonstrate the thing with the bulb planter. Now, this bed was, I mean, it's these mini perma beds, how long have I had them? 19, 20, 21, 22, 4 years, was it 18? Can't remember, doesn't matter. 3 or 4 years. So this stuff has never been walked on. So it's not my feet compacting it, not, I say, with the paths. But you can see, and the whole bed was like this. It's not just because it's under the rose, but the whole bed was like this. So I'm not exaggerating. That I can't even get it in the ground. If I took, oh my God, I'm really putting effort into that. Hang on a sec. Really a lot of effort. And, you know, can't get a potato into that. And that is why, short of no dig or Ruth Stout, that is why, oh blimey, this bed has had to be dug. I mean, I could keep going for 10 minutes, but you know, how is a potato gonna grow happily? It's like this. What I mean about making a concrete tube, and then what am I going to earth it with? So that's why I haven't done the bulb planter. But let's talk about why I don't do no dig, but what I do to try my best anyway. A little bit of work has warmed me up. Good. I've just actually done a bit more on another bed because I'm aware of time and I need to get home for something really special this afternoon. But yeah, just very final word on that bed that we were in, the one that's the rose bush bed. Now the thing about that bed and the next 2 beds along, so the other spud bed too, so it's not the rose bush. In 2020, each bed had a chunk of compost added. Then at the end of season they were cropped and dropped and covered in the cardboard. That cardboard does seem to help. Covered in the cardboard. And then at the beginning of the next season, so last spring, they were all then covered in a really thick layer of horse manure. Now, by the spring and the horse manure, there was absolutely zero evidence of any of that compost. It had all gone into the soil, whatever. I think clay drinks compost. So the horse manure went on. So essentially that bed has been no dig for a couple of years. And that's where it's got me. So I think that's the thing for me. I have costed it. I'm going to come on to that now. You know, to get enough compost, to have enough of a layer. You know, you've just seen that with the bulb planter. I can't put seeds in that. I can't even put a seedling or a little plant. You know, one of the things I brought on, I can't put it in there. The roots won't be able to get anywhere. It'll be like they're pot bound because of that concrete tube effect. So yeah, those beds do not work unless I fluff them up a bit. So just on that note, before we dive into what I can't do and why, and what I do and that works. So yeah, some of this is going to sound a bit negative, and I don't mean it to be negative at all. I hope you've known me for long enough now to know that that's not my default setting. I'm positive. So whatever else today, we're going to end on some really positive stuff and what I can do and how positive the onions are in. But yeah, look, there are all sorts of ways of gardening, and I think one of the most important things is that we just respect each other and we're kind to one another. So even if you don't like the way someone gardens, you know, some people actually don't like me for being too neat. It's weird. I've had my ear chewed for being too neat. That's fine. If you don't like neat gardens and neat gardening, maybe you're not going to like me, even though I'm scruffy at times. If you only want to be no dig, then again, don't look at a channel like mine where I do dig. And if you hate no dig, don't look at it. Do you know what I mean? It's like we all have those choices. We're all individuals. I've never sort of set my stall out to say I'm an expert, do what I do. This has always all along been me saying this is what I can manage to do with what I've got. I'm sharing with you because hopefully it might inspire you to have a go, or you know, show what can be done for very little money, etc., etc. I'm not saying any of you should garden like me, because A, I'm not an expert, and B, I'm not that arrogant. So yeah, can we all just really respect each other? I have had stick, actually some really quite nasty stick, and you know what, they always do it privately via my Facebook, they don't do it publicly, but I've had some really, really nasty stick from people who've gone no dig, you know, they've converted to it in the last 4 or 5 years, and they get really evangelical about it. And you know what, it's great, of course it's a great way to do things, but I'm not in a position to, so don't have a go at me. What it all boils down to is, yeah, our soil is the most precious thing we've got, so of course we want to look after it. We want to nurture. In fact, it's more about nurturing the soil than nurturing our plants. The soil is nurturing our plants. We can leave the plants alone. They can get on with it. The soil is looking after them. We are the ones to, it's the soil that we need to nurture. So, okay, both No Dig and Ruth Stout, it's, you know, it's very similar principles, and it's about not disturbing the soil. And I quite agree with that. We don't want to keep mucking around with the structure of the soil. What I do dig still, I do have to get the fork, and you saw in that potato bed, I can't plant otherwise. I simply cannot get plants into the ground if I don't dig. But I'm really mindful. I go, it's quite shallow that I go, it's not even quite the length of the fork tine, so it's just that top bit of soil to sort of break it up, fluff it up a bit so I can actually get something into the soil. But below that, no. When I first arrived on site, that top bed, I was kind of going old school, you know, what my granddad used to do. I double dug that whole top bed, and I started to double dig the next bed down, but as soon as I went in to do the second spit, I hit clay, solid orange clay, and I was like, I don't want to bring that up. And it was from that point in the garden that, and in a way that was like my sort of turning point of, hang on a minute, I'm mucking up the soil structure by bringing this stuff up, stop. So I have over the years tried to be less dig. Oh, we're coming on to the positives at the end. Right, so why don't I do no dig? Cost is, it's the big reason. I did work out for the compost, the amount of compost I would need. I've got 20 beds. It would take about £100 worth of compost to do each bed. I can't buy in bulk. I'll explain why for that in a second. But yeah, so it would take about £2,000 to go no dig for my garden. Now, as we saw from the potato bed where we just were, the following year there was no sign of any of that compost left, so I'd have to keep repeating. It would take years of doing it every single year to build up, you know, perfect, fluffy, composty topsoil that, you know, it's too much money. One, I don't have that kind of money, and no, I'm not asking for it. Please, I do not want a compost fund, because the other thing is getting it here. But yeah, I don't want to be spending that kind of money. It's too much. The whole point for me of gardening like I do is to show and share that you can end up with £2,000 worth of harvest of vegetables for so little money in terms of the outlay. £40 for my rent. I get a slightly reduced rent because I'm low income. 40 quid for my rent, 20 quid on seeds for £2,000 worth of vegetables. So I'm trying to inspire folk who don't have any money whatsoever to show that you can still grow really gorgeous veggies for virtually no money, for about £2 a week. So yeah, the compost will be too expensive. Likewise, hay, for if I was to go Ruth Stout. I just don't have access to these things for free. You know, folks say, oh, but go to the council and get free compost from where they... Our council does not do free compost. I mean, trust me, if there was if something was available free, I would have looked into it by now. If I don't do something in the garden, there's a jolly good reason for it, and believe me, I will have researched all my options. You know, I don't just sit here and go, oh, compost is expensive, I give up, you know, and look into things. So no, there is no way for me to get free compost or free hay. You saw with the horse muck, you can't even get free horse muck, for goodness sakes. So firstly, there's the expense. Now secondly, because I know people will be thinking, buy in bulk, it's much cheaper. Herein is another problem. Access to this site. We're not on a road. We've got a little lane, and I know from experience, I had a 1 ton bag, you know, the big builder's bags, of sand delivered for when I was building the base for the shed. They couldn't deliver it to the allotment. It got delivered to the main road, they've been 400 metres away. Thank goodness my knees were in better shape at that time. And I spent a whole day going backwards and forwards to the main road, barrowing my sand from the main road down here onto the site. There's no way I could do that these days with my knees. No way. So I can't buy in bulk, because the kind of lorries that deliver in bulk, either the ones that have got those grabby things to lift the bags off and swing them round, or the ones with the pallets, they can't actually get to our site. The second problem is my site doesn't actually have an address. It's a bit of a secret, which is great. So when I have managed to get a bit of compost delivered before, one, it was from the local lads at the DIY store. I actually got in the van with them to show them how to get here. It's just a little transit van. I had to bring them. I had to sit in the van with them and bring them. That's fine. I know them. And the second time I had it was a company, fantastic little family-run business. They were so flexible. They're the ones who saved me in lockdown, because I think I cried on the phone. I explained we don't have an address. So I gave them an address that's near-ish. And I said, I'll meet you there, but I'm not going to sit there all morning. So you're going to have to give me a bit of a time slot. And then when it actually comes to the moment, text me and I'll come and find you. So they were really great in their flexibility of saying, okay, well, we'll do it Saturday morning. It'll be between sort of 11 in the morning and 1. Great. I came to site and I was working on the allotment. And then, I don't know, 5 to 12 or so, they rang and they said, we're at the house. And I said, okay, I'm coming to collect you. So I went off out of the site, up the lane to the house where they were. And I said, it's down here. But it's a bit of a palaver to get a delivery from a company. In other words, it's a palaver to do a bulk order, which will bring the price down. So basically what I'm left with is using my granny trolley and buying the most I can manage in the granny trolley is 40 litres, a 40 litre bag of compost. 40 litres would not even cover a metre of one of my beds. It would do, I mean, it wouldn't even do, but maybe it would do about a quarter of a metre of one of my beds. 40 litres of compost is currently costing me £4. Yeah, it's only going to do about a fifth of that. So it would be about £20 to do it. So yeah, about 80 quid for one bed. But it would be quite a skimpy. What's the recommended layer? I think it's 10 centimetres, isn't it? It wouldn't be 10 centimetres. That's what I mean. One bed, like 100 quid, if not more. And I know folk have said, yeah, but why don't you do just one bed? Start with just one bed. But as I've just demonstrated with the potato bed, I'd have to keep doing that bed every single year. And I just don't want to have to spend £100 on one bed every year. The other thing, of course, is about investing any kind of money into the allotment. What if I get to the stage? What if next year I really can't manage it anymore? And it's not just about the digging. What if I just can't manage even getting to the allotment anymore and I have to give it up? I am not going to invest hundreds, if not thousands of pounds in this garden when the future of it, of me, or whatever, isn't secure. So yeah, there's a number of things, primarily cost, secondly the access to our site and not having an address, also, even if I was to get a delivery, and I know, look, I'm not being a baby about this. I'm not a baby about things at all. I can get on. But to get enough compost to cover all my beds, it would take me days, days and days to barrow it from the gate to my plot. I did 4 that first day, and then was it 6 or 7? No, 6 on the second day when I was barrowing the horse mark. After 6 barrows, I mean, I could hardly walk home. It was awful. So, and I know people always say, oh, well, you know, get friends to help. Look, my friends have got jobs, they work, they've got other things to do. And when they are free at the weekends, most of them are busy with either their kids or they've got their own gardens to do. I wouldn't dream of asking my friends to come and do my hard work for me. No way. If I have my friends to the garden, it's to have a sit at the table and have a nice cold beer with them. So yeah, I don't have access to compost, you know, free or even cheap. I don't have access to hay, free or even cheap. So both things are out. One person did message me once to say, well, why don't you make your own compost then? Duh, as if I wasn't making compost. I'm a gardener, of course I make compost. That's what we do. And I compost absolutely anything and everything I can get my hands on. I forage outside of the garden for nettles and leaves and bits of grass, anything to put in the compost bin. Plus, of course, all my own scraps and waste and cardboard and anything from the garden. It just, you know, I fill those 2 bins. They both end up full to the brim, twice, maybe 3 times over each year. But after it's been left a while, I end up with about half a bin's worth. I just don't generate enough waste to be able to make enough of my own compost. Anyway, so that's all a bit neggy, and you know, I don't mean it to be. Look, the bottom line is this, like I said, let's not judge each other, let's be kind, and if people really, really want to judge me for how I garden, don't judge me by my method, judge me by my harvests. Judge me by the health of my plants and how happy they are. And, you know, you've all seen, you know, year after year after year, I get some really lovely harvests that make me so happy. Happy, healthy veggie, happy, healthy Vivi. Now, let's talk about the positive stuff that I can do. The first thing to say is I am blessed with my soil. I know, I can't believe I'm saying it. So despite the fact that it's so... it's really nutrient dense. So I'm off to a great start. And, you know, it's another reason when people talk about container gardening, why don't I do the potatoes in containers I was mentioning the other day. Now look, if I lived in a rental property and the whole garden was paved, like patio or whatever, of course I'd garden in containers because that would be the only option. But here, it seems completely crazy to me to buy soil in the form of compost, you know. It's crazy to buy it when I've got a whole garden full of fantastic nutrient-dense soil out there. It just takes a bit of work. And you know what? I'm not scared of hard work. I would like, of course, over the years, in the coming years, I would like to make things easier for myself. And sort of saying about, you know, if I ever lost the plot because of either I can't walk here anymore or the council for some reason decide, right, they're going to sell off the land and build a block of flats. I don't think they would ever do that, but, you know, there's no security, so I'm not going to invest in an insecure place. But hopefully I will get a garden when I move house, and you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to be investing in the garden there. I've already started designing things in my head, even though I don't know what a garden will look like that I might get. I might not even get a garden, but I will be building raised beds, proper raised beds, like 3 foot high, not one scaff plank. That's not a raised bed, that's an edged bed, but proper deep raised beds. Fill the bottom a la hugel culture, whatever. And it's part of the reason, you know, I sort of, when I think about the cost of buying my next place, I want to reserve a sum of money specifically for the garden so that I can buy all that compost, fill up all those beds and make gardening easier for me as my legs get worse and worse. But anyway, so what can I do and what do I do here? firstly, well, I've just said, I compost everything, absolutely everything I can, and I forage for material to compost too, of course. We're gardeners, we all do that, don't we? But the best things I've done for my garden in the last 4 years, one, I stopped moving my paths every year. I used to get to the end of the season, dig the whole big bed out and cover it in green manure for the winter, and it was absolutely the worst thing I could do for my garden because A, it involved a lot of digging, B, the green manure, the field beans over winter, there's just not enough of them to cover the ground, so all the ground that's not covered by them gets pelted by rain, compacted. Come the spring, those beds were like concrete again. Awful, awful, awful. So I decided to switch over to my new sort of miniature permanent beds within the big beds. One of the best things I ever did. Now I can really focus my compost to the specific area of the bed. Great. Where I'm walking up and down on the path, fine. I never need to plant there. So it doesn't matter that I'm compacting the soil. So now I have beds that never ever get walked on. Where I can focus all my compost, etc. That's been a great help. And one of the biggest things for me, crop and drop. So at the end of the season, I do my harvesting and then I just get my secateurs and I go, whatever the plants are that are there, I go snip, 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 let them fall on the ground and I leave them. Just that's it, leave them, walk away, except for the fact that then I cover them with the cardboard. And I think, wow, the cardboard has really, I think that's one of the things that's made the biggest difference for my garden. So the other day you saw when I did my onions, pulled the cardboard back, put the fork in. I mean, it just like went, it fluffed up, you know. I sort of brought the fork out and it sort of all fell and crumbled off the fork. Brilliant. The potato bed, put the fork in, bring the fork out and you've got a rock like this, a rock on the end of the fork. It just won't break up. And obviously it did break up in the end, I've had to break it up. But I think that's so much to do with the cardboard. I didn't get any cardboard on the potato beds this last winter. I'm so kicking myself. So yeah, there are definitely things I can do that cost no money and really not that much, not too much effort. Yeah, foraging, raking up grass clippings, raking up leaves is a little bit of an effort, but it's worth it. With the cardboard, well, I live above a shop. I just raid their cardboard when they put their recycling out, grab a couple of boxes. When we get into about August, September each year, I just start bringing a couple of bits of cardboard box with me to the garden every time I visit, so that as we get to the end of September and into October, as the harvests are coming and the plants are finishing, I've got cardboard ready straight away so that I can crop and drop, quick, whack the cardboard on. Have I missed anything? Mulching throughout the season. I try not to have bare soil even through the summer. You know, it suppresses weeds, it helps to lock in any moisture, but of course I'm mulching with natural organic matter, whether it's grass or leaves, sometimes it's cardboard, and as the season goes on that's breaking down and that's being incorporated into the soil, so that's great too. So by the time I'm doing my crop and drop in the autumn, the crop and drop is landing on the remnants of mulch and then the cardboard, and then over the winter it all. So I am kind of almost doing that sort of with Ruth Stout's principle. It was that we start with our soil and we put our layer of hay on it in the spring, and then in the autumn another layer of hay goes on it, but that first layer has started to break down, and we keep repeating every spring and autumn, and it breaks down until we end up with this lovely layer of topsoil. It's taken a bit long without hay, but it is working. So yeah, mulch, cover, crop and drop. Those are the things I can do which cost nothing apart from my time and do seem to be helping. I always have friends on this site who've been adding compost year after year after year after year and who still struggle with this soil. That's the other thing to bear in mind, is I just have really, really heavy, sticky clay. Any of you who've ever done pottery, imagine trying to sow seeds in your pottery. That's what it's like. So it takes time. I'm gradually improving things. But yeah, that's why I do what I do, and that's why I don't do what I don't do. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I'm blessed to have such nutrient-dense soil. And, you know, it's doable. It's always this time of year when I go, oh, it's really hard work. It's really hard work in March and April. But it's really hard work every March and April. And even if I was barrowing in a load of compost, even if it was free compost, that would be hard work too. It's just hard work because I've got rubbish knees. But you know what? I might have rubbish knees, but I've got a strong heart and I've got a strong mind, and it happens, and it's happening. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Oh, potatoes are in. I now have potatoes and onions in. Yay! It's a start, isn't it? I'm still itching from ant bites. It's a start. So when we come back, you know, for the rest, the next will be I'll do a tour, show you where I've got to, and then the next few videos it's going to be full steam ahead to get sewing. We're going to be having a mass sewing event. Can't wait. Alright lovelies, yeah, do whatever you can do with whatever you have got. Don't let people tell you should be doing it a different way. We're all different. We all have our own personal choices. And like I said, that's the main thing. You do the best with what you've got, and be happy with it. And I'm so happy with my garden. I'm blessed to have it. And it blesses me in return with gorgeous harvests. So see you soon for the tour and then for some seed sowing. Around and around the cycle goes. Here we go again. Cheerio everyone. Please look after yourselves and be kind to one another.